my contribution to that, which is my patent to destroy Monsanto. I only own one patent. Not a big fan of patents, but I went and got one because I didn't want Monsanto to go ahead and patent it, then people couldn't use it. So what I did is in terms of weeds and all this stuff, so basically I was down in Latin America. I've been there, I've lived there for a year at a time, and people eat corn there. It's not like here. And the thing is, I would watch how corn would grow there. You know, corn, when it grows, the ears dry out, the whole plant dries out, and then there's a phenomenon where an abscission layer forms in the bottom of the stalk. It gets soft, and then the whole stalk falls over. So the corn is sitting on the ground. So the bottom is against the ground, that the top, the crows and everything else can get to, and they peck at it, and they scatter out corn in all directions, but the bottom kernels stay there, and then in the spring, when the rain comes, it comes up in a clump. Well, people who live in Latin America learned that was the right way to grow corn, in clumps, by observing nature. But what I observed, which was so amazing, which is in the radius around the clump of corn, there were no weeds. No weeds. As an ecologist, that jumps out at me, you know. Wow, what caused that? So I studied it and figured out what it was, and after I patented it, I called the USDA and said, what do you think of this? And they go, yeah, we've looked at that too, and we think that it's all the nitrogen that's in the corn, you know, it enriches the soil all around and gets the nitrogen so high that it poisons the weeds. And I see here a lot of people laughing. I was a farmer, and I got to tell you, the thing that uses nitrogen best are the weeds, okay? So, but the USDA is like completely focused on this war with nature mentality, and so they said it had to poison the weeds somehow. That's their only paradigm that they can deal with, war with nature. And what I discovered was when you have little bits of corn or dried distiller's grains, just the leftover for making alcohol, and you spread that on the ground in about the same concentration that would be there if the corn was just spread on the ground. That all kinds of things in the soil that eat roots have a population explosion. And so when a weed seed blows in after you've put dried distiller's grains on the ground, and the weed tries to sprout, there's all these things in there going, and eating the root right off the weed. And it's a biological weed control. It's not a chemical herbicide. So the other thing is, remember, what's left in the dried distiller's grains after you take the carbohydrates out? What's left? Protein.
Minerals.
What? Minerals. Which ones?
The ones that are used to grow.
The ones to grow the next crop, right? In essence, you have this year's crop in the distiller's grains, exactly the amount of fertilizer you need to grow next year's crop. If you spread that on the ground as an herbicide, right, to kill the weeds, it also has all the fertilizer you need to grow the next crop of corn. And so now you don't need chemical fertilizer, and you don't need herbicide, and you don't need Roundup Ready seeds. Those are the three biggest costs in growing corn. You make more profit if you do that.
Does that feed into the whole thing that you're saying that it's $1 a gallon you can produce per
No, that's separate. That's a whole separate calculation. I'm talking about the patent to destroy Monsanto.
Right.
So the point is, if you don't need Roundup Ready seeds, you don't need Roundup, you don't need Monsanto. And so here's my license agreement to use my patent. If you're a small farmer and you want to use my patent to make alcohol and put the stuff back out there in the field, my license agreement is $1. But, there's a but, you can't buy anything from Monsanto that year, or you have to pay full price for my patent.
Oh, good on. Good.
You got that? $1, and you can't buy anything from Monsanto if you use my patent.
And how much is your full price?
The full price would be like $200, right? You know, in other words, I don't want you to use anything from Monsanto. So I announced this at the American Corn Growers Association conference. This one 80-year-old guy gets up in the front, you know, he comes up to the microphone and he pulls out $5 and said, "Can we have a group license?" Because there's nobody who hates Monsanto like a farmer. We may think they're evil, but the real victims are the farmers. They're the ones made into serfs here, you know. So anyway.